Yes. Okay. Awesome. So,
All right.
tell me about what have you been working on?
So would you like the extended lore or would you like the kind of the short stuff? I can
I
from
mean,
what I can.
it's up to you.
So I've been uh I don't actually know where to start. Well, I guess I should start currently where I am, which is Gold 3 playing top, and
Sure.
I recently just moved to uni about a few weeks ago, from 3 or 4 weeks ago, and so now for the first time, really, I've had the opportunity to like really focus on improvement and getting better at a game. And I've kind of always wanted to improve at something because it's like I play video games as my main hobby. It'd be nice to actually have something to show for it. Um, so I really
What do
wanted
you
to.
mean by show for it?
Um, while I don't have any personal attachment to my rank. It's nice to be able to like when someone says, "Oh, do you play video games?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and then like maybe the. Funnily enough, people don't really ask you this question a lot, but if they say, what rank are you? It's a lot more. It would be nicer to be able to say something like, I don't know, Masters or Grandmaster rather than saying, oh, I'm like hard stuck gold. Um,
But
and
why is that important?
um, I don't know. It just shows that because like it being my main hobby, it's taken up like a huge amount of,
Are you
a
doing
huge amount of my life. But
sure? But are you
I mean, it's
doing your
taken out.
hobby for yourself, like, or are you doing it for other people? That's the question.
I'm doing it for myself. I mean, like at the end of the day, ultimately, once I reach, like if I reach a higher rank, it's demonstrating myself that I can actually achieve that. And I'm like, if I actually can do something if I like, you know, put some mental effort into it. Because like it's taken. I mean, I used to play Overwatch. When I started playing that, it was like I don't know if you're familiar with how the ranking system works, but I was like bronze, like
Sure.
really low tier bronze, and that sucked. And then eventually, like I ended up having to mental flip myself to the point where I ended up peaking like mid diamond. So that was like a really good feeling, and that was like I can actually achieve that. I ended up swapping to League actually because I stopped playing Overwatch because the game was gotten really bad. So I ended up switching to League. I started off with bronze here as well, but then I've tried to apply kind of that same improvement mentality, looking at educational content and stuff like that. I've kind of got where I am now, but I've just kind of stagnated a bit and don't really know where to go from here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, from what you're telling me, it feels like you're doing your hobby, and the meaning of rank is just so that you have something nice to say when people ask you stuff.
Um, kind of. I mean, I guess it's in part because I like in some ways, I guess I shouldn't care about what other people think about it. I mean, no one really cares anyway. But
I don't
at
think
the same
anyone really
time,
cares, though.
no,
Yeah.
no, no, no one cares about your League of Legends rank. That's like, there's no maybe about that. But it's, I guess it's just like a self-justification thing that I've just gone, all right, fine. I need to prove this to myself at the very least, and it would be nice to have a little. It's like having a
that's
little sticker, you know.
that's a lot different of a reason than the other reason that you gave previously. Like the reasoning that you gave before was that it's nice to have something to say and show people.
Yeah.
But what you're
Okay.
now saying is you're saying that it would be for yourself. You have to sort of decide.
It Right. Well, it's like, well, I think it's 50-50. I think it's like partly for myself, but it's also like, I guess it's an analogy to having a little sticker on you that you can walk around and then, like, you can show off your sticker to everyone. It doesn't mean anything. It's like, it's not the end of the world if you don't have the sticker, but it would be nice to have the sticker because, stickers are cool. It's that sort of on parallel with that, if that makes any sense. Um,
But what does the sticker say about you? That's the question. I
Absolutely nothing. And completely understand that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if I stay a hard stock gold for the next 10 years, life goes on. But it's just like if I can, it would be
sure,
nice.
sure.
Um, uh,
Yeah, I'm just curious as to like what the reasoning was. That's why I'm asking because it's important to understand that a lot of people confuse rank with being good. I've actually met quite a few players who are high elo who don't really
yeah,
understand the fundamentals to a good enough level. They actually got there through other means, through simply acquiring knowledge, using knowledge to sort of win their games, understanding certain things about the game that are very niche, very specific, but because they've acquired so much of it, it eventually reached sort of a breaking point where they are able to use that to sort of abuse their opponent through just their own knowledge of the game. And that is like something that I see very often. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good. It means that they are abusing the fact that the enemy are making mistakes, which is very different, actually. Because, like I said, like it's not necessarily a correct way of playing, but it works for them because they're mainly focused on the rank itself. They're mainly focused on maximizing their percentage of winning games, which is why it's important to understand like your own reason for doing this stuff. Because even if you did have like a master tier rank, the rank itself doesn't really say anything about your skill, and moreover, right, it can actually be on the opposite end, where like you have the rank, but you could have gotten it through other means besides being a better player.
Abusing things rather than being.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. It's so. I guess it's more like I want to show that I can make that improvement, even, and I do want. I want to become. I guess if you're making the distinguishment between good player and high ranked player, I want to be good at the game. I did have like a pipe dream once of being professional player, but like obviously where we are right now, playing the game for like 2 years and I'm still gold, it's like I've just parked that one. But
the reason, but I just want to quickly point out, right? It's a catch-22 because the way you can sort of attribute this is that the rank itself isn't really the reason why you are good, or even why you even like become pro or whatever is like your goal. This isn't really the reason why you either get it or don't get it. In fact, I would say that this isn't as important as this right here. Like this, the actual flowchart itself is this, right? Being good is what actually leads to the rank. It's the other way around, essentially. Because you, for example, a very good way to explain this is that Faker isn't good because he is challenger. Faker.
I understand that.
Yes. So in any case, though,
you don't get good by being a high rank, and conversely, you don't get bad by being a low rank. You get the rank you get by being good or bad.
Right. So that's just to explain. And I think that if you focus too much on the rank, it can actually be troublesome for you. Because if let's say, maybe not for you, but let's say like we take another player, right? We take another player, we have him sort of adopt either of two mentalities. Either he focuses on maximizing his win ratio so that he can get to a high rank in as quick of a time frame as possible, versus adopting a mentality that is focused on the long term, focused on improving and becoming a really, really good player, really solid player. The second approach will, in the long term, yield better results than the first approach, even though the first approach may technically get you to the rank itself faster. Right.
I suppose there's the kind of worry with the second one. I don't, for want of a better word than worry, is like how long term is long term.
That is entirely dependent on how well you're able to learn, which is actually one of the things that I try to help people with. Because learning, learning is itself a skill. It's just like a skill, like any other skill. You have essentially like your own level, and you can go up or you can go down, and that's like entirely dependent on how first. Not well, motivation is like one part of it, but it's not really the biggest part. The most important thing about understanding learning is actually understanding how to improve in the right way. Because if you think about, let's take soccer for example, right? In soccer, the attitude towards soccer is that you focus on technique, you focus on proper basics, right?
Yeah.
You focus on how do you kick the ball.
Right.
You focus on those things. These are the things that you focus on within football and in other sports too. However, when you go over to League, right? League is incentivizing you to think about rank and MMR, partly because Riot is giving you like rank rewards, like the skin that you get at the end of the season when you reach gold. That's one way that they're incentivizing it. The other way is, of course, through content creators constantly saying, "Oh, challenger coach" or whatever.
Yeah.
And although yes, rank does like have some relevancy to how good you are, but there are other things that are involved within like just the skill of the game that aren't really encapsulated by the rank itself. Again, this is why there's a difference between Faker and a random, challenger, right?
Yeah. As a correlation, you could say like rank has necessarily a correlation with better players, but not necessarily a causal relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it's definitely an indicator, but it doesn't necessarily encapsulate the whole thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So in any case, right, that's just to sort of explain.
Right. Okay. Cool. You don't mind me recording this, do you?
I'm already recording it. So,
all right. Yeah.
So in any case, though, let's move on with the session. I think that definitely something I want you to think about because, the motivation definitely is like a good thing to have, a good thing to think about.
Yeah. No, I took 2 VODs, by the way. I obviously
I have them both.
They're quite different. I think this one's quite. This game was like a bit of a weird one. I think it was like fairly decent CSing and things like this, but I pretty much self-imposed exile into a side lane. I didn't really interact with my team, and we ended up losing. So I'm not entirely sure. I think it was a mid-game error, but obviously I have no idea. So
right. But what are you currently working on in terms of lane? Are you working on stage 1? Are you working on stage 2? Or
I think stage 1. So I recently came back to League after moving in and stuff like that. So I looked at all the stuff in LS's Discord and the Resolve Discord and was like, right, let's have a look at the fundamental stuff, and looked at the stage model and was like, fine, I'll go back to doing the CSing. Which is slowly improving, I think. Occasional games. So it's a lot of focusing on CSing, but that does occasionally have lapses of, I don't know how good effective it is. So.
Yeah. And so, do you remember everything about stage 1 that you need to do?
It's mainly to do with the CS benchmarks, 34 at 5 and 84 at 10. I think that equates to dropping 1 CS a wave. So this game, for example, I think I ended up going quite a bit above that, at least for the earlier mid-game. Okay. But this is like on the upper end of my CSing games. And also been taking it back to like really fundamental champions like Garen, Malphite. I've been playing a lot of Darius, because I've just had a lot of experience with Darius anyway. So.
Yes. But what else? So besides the benchmarks, what else do you know?
I can't remember the other part of the stage.
I mean, what about the wave?
The box model. So like leaving it generally when it's in the middle third, you leave it. When it's close to you, you want to freeze, and when it's in the last third, you want to bounce or crash it straight away. It's roughly split into thirds. I think the freezing has varying levels of success. I've been freezing for a while, but I still haven't quite nailed it down perfectly. But I think that's the general idea.
Sure. So box model, and of course, we have the bounce here, we have the thinning here, but you all, of course, want to thin even as the wave sort of pushes into you. You want to already start sort of thinning out so that you don't end up having the wave crashing in repeatedly, because most of the CS that you will lose will be because of deaths.
Yeah.
And the other reason will be because of resets. For example, you get harassed out of lane, you have to take a bad reset. This is a big reason. And thirdly, it's to do with the wave and turret.
Yeah.
So if you let waves crash, then you would probably have this sort of problem. So you have a problem to do with how you're thinning the wave. And then we want to then look at, like, okay, how can we use the CS drill to help you combat this issue and tackle this? And then, of course, you have the other ones. But in any case, that's like the general rundown right there.
Yeah.
So let's just have a look and see.
And so I'd usually start before I play a ranked game. I'll play like just a 5-minute CS drill. Someone recommended just like do that before doing ranked, just to get you warmed up.
Yeah, that's good. Definitely.
I haven't watched this back, so this is could be a bit cursed.
So right there, right? Way you can think about it is that going for using the Q in this situation, going by like what we're seeing right here. This last hit, if you look at the HP right here, it's not low enough that you actually need to use your Q, right? One of the rules within stage 1 is that you don't want to use abilities unless it's absolutely necessary, or if 2 minions are dying at the same time. So the 2-minion rule, or like can't use like auto, so like unable.
Yeah. So you can use it as an auto cancel if like 2 minions are dying.
Yeah, exactly. So like those are the two cases, but this is not one of them. So right here, right, the way you can think about using Q is that you want to use Q in this case to go. First of all, you go for the CS with one auto, just a normal auto attack. Then after he does his thing, you Q him and run away, like straight off. Because then you silence him, and you make sure that you then just run away as fast as you can with the movement speed of Q.
Would there be any merit to just using Q and then like immediately running away without silencing him? Because if you turn around to silence him, you might be able to squeeze another auto attack.
Sure. Like
trivial question,
but
maybe, but
it's not that important. It's not that significant. But I think that if you use auto, and since he is sort of walking up into it, you can use auto and then Q just run away in that case.
Right.
So yeah, but to answer your question, for sure, like if using Q doesn't really save you, then yeah, by all means, then avoid using it. Then instead just run away. But using Q like this isn't necessary, because first of all, you could have used just an auto attack, and the other reason is that using Q for last hits is not something that we generally want to do.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I really didn't expect him to start E. I think I remember that. That caught me a bit off guard.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess it doesn't really change the thing anyway.
Yeah, it's fine. So as you can see, right, wave ends up under tower. You do manage to. I think you could have used Q there to get that one, but that's fine. That's another one. Yeah. So like if we just go back there a couple seconds. Because after it takes one, you see how the quality is a bit low, but essentially like basically it has taken about one auto attack of damage, and the way that it works, right, is that you have 2 turret shots
and then
plus the auto attack.
Yeah.
So if you remove this from the equation, then the minion will die in 2 turret shots. So you need to remember that as you are like CSing under tower, that okay, if there's a little bit of damage on the minion's HP bar and it's a melee minion, probably want to last hit it as soon as possible, with even with like my abilities. So if instead of walking in that sort of way that you did, where you walked like this, try to instead just walk straight at it and just auto kill.
Yeah.
Then that would have been easy to get in that case.
Okay.
Yeah. But in any case, these are just small things.
So I have a slight question because
Sure.
this game is a little bit different. So I lost cannon there. Like how is the correct way to play when you're potentially off to lose cannon or something like that? Because in that scenario, if I walk up there, I take a lot of damage, and I think really Kane's here, so we end up getting the kill. But if I walk up to that cannon to last hit the cannon, I take a lot of damage. I think from Darius trading me. So is it okay to give up the cannon given it's like 90 gold? Because it happens in quite a lot of scenarios where the wave is being pushed in. If I walk up to get the cannon, I'm going to take a lot of HP. Like, is the 90 gold worth it?
The way it works is that you want to take as little harass as possible.
Yeah.
Right? Because you want to reach the goals, but you also want to try to make sure to avoid losing too much HP, because losing too much HP can cause you to then have to take bad resets, you die, and that can of course be problematic. So, answer is prioritize making sure that you live. If you really have to, though, I think that it is still completely fine to go for the cannon. Like if a cannon minion is here. If they try to trade you, then you just simply do the same thing, like Q, and try to really just run away. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the charm about Garen, right? He's very easy and straightforward like this, because even when you're working on stage 1, you can still just auto the minion, Q to then silence them and run away, so they can't like do anything.
Yeah.
So I don't think you have to worry too much about it. But there are definitely ways that you can like get to the CS and maybe like play. You essentially want to try to stand as far away from any given CS that you can. So like if Darius is, for example, here, you would want to approach the minion in this sort of a way, because you want to stand opposite, as far away from him as possible, so that he can't reach you that easily.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So, lot positioning, defensive spacing, all of that stuff. That's the things that you want to work on.
Like positioning in such a way that he either has to expend something or telegraph that he's moving towards you in order to.
Sure. Well, the thing about telegraphing isn't necessarily the reason. It's more so to do with that, because he has to walk. Like if we take this here, just because you panned over here, if we take this example, right? Xerath wants to stand here because if Yon wants to go in, he has to approach the Xerath with this angle. So he has to actually walk into his wave. He has to go into it in order to actually reach Xerath. If Xerath was standing right here, then you see how it's a lot less safe than if you stood here. Yeah. And that's because of how you want to stand opposite to your enemy, so that they can't just randomly walk into you without taking a lot of minion damage. You know?
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
That's the big reason, at least for CSing. Later on, though, there can be other reasons. But for now, this is the only reason that matters.
Yeah.
So, it's just to make sure you're safe. Also, I would really recommend not looking at other lanes. Mainly because it's not necessarily because it's bad. It's just that we want to spend as much attention as possible on just doing stage 1 things. As in, the more attention you spend on this, the more focus you have, the better your performance is overall.
I suppose so. Yeah, I can see that.
So, in any case, let's have a look here. Yeah, so the wave's pushing into us.
I think Azix might have been topside as well. I can't entirely remember. This was a couple of days ago. I think it's playing back.
That's the situation that you can use Q right there.
Right.
Right, and you see right there like how so first thing, right? He is very close to the CS.
Yeah.
So we still want to like go a bit further back because we want to be as close to the tower as possible if we're gonna approach this. And
we ended up using it anyway.
Yeah. Let's look at this next last here. Because you see how he is taking... Yeah, so... Oh, sorry. Jesus. He is taking this angle right here, right? So he is moving here, which means where do we want to move? Where do we want to be?
I'm gonna move like up, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be like in this area, so that you're opposite to him. That way, you create the biggest distance between you and him. Make sense?
Yeah. Right. Sorry, I'm coughing. I'm gonna mute myself generally. I'm just coughing.
It's fine.
This might be the really weird moment from Darius where he does something really strange. Yeah, it is.
Okay. So last thing on the tower. Yeah, so you see like he's taking a lot.
Yeah. I kind of went to chase him and he just ended up taking so much damage. I was like really confused.
At this point, since we know that he has reset, you can actually push this if you want.
Right.
Yeah, we end up slow pushing it, and that's when we end up... Oh, actually, yeah, you had level 6, so this is still fine.
He kind of griefs a bit. I still think I think it was probably better to just shove, because I would...
The idea, though, is that like when your enemy is reset and he specifically has like these summoners that you see right here,
yeah,
you have TP. This allows you to then make the choice that, okay, because he is low HP, I know that he has to spend 8 seconds to reset, and he has to come back all the way from there back to lane. That is taking a long ass time. And that's also without boots, so you know that he's not going to be able to come back into lane if you instantly shove after he backs off.
Right.
So, in that situation, when you know that they can't respond to it, just go for the shove.
It's a shove, you're right.
Yeah, because then it's like, it's really easy. You don't have to like worry about it. So, oh, okay, there we go. Oh, whoops. That was my bad. What the fuck? I'm trying to use the stylus. I'm trying to use the stylus. Yeah. Weird. Okay. Yeah, that's weird. Okay. Yes.
It's right. Right.
Yeah, I'll just close these down just to remove that. Hopefully that helps. Let's skip forward to, yeah, so you kill him, come back.
I think this is my attempt to freeze.
Right. So, first of all, let's talk about like just the basics. So, what do you know about freezing?
I think the setting up generally comes from you crash the wave bounces
Sure.
back because of the proximity of the minions to the
Yep.
enemy tower, so they like stack up and they slow push towards you.
Yes.
Then you kind of thin it out, so there's about, I think it works out as about 4 caster minions, but I don't know
Yep.
how that works out, like if you've got like melee minions and stuff, and I think that's where it starts to break, and then you just kind of only last it.
Yes. You last it, but you also keep track of this number. The way you keep
Right.
track of it is you count, essentially. So like right here you have 5 plus. You have another wave coming in. So you have to account for this, of course. So right here you have 2. This is about to die, so you can basically neglect this.
Mhm.
And if you take 5 minus this, that becomes 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right about at that point where like it's
This is especially with like melees and cannon minions as well. It's like they've got a lot more HP and they do like different amounts of damage to your own
Yeah.
wave. So it's like
a cannon.
factoring.
A cannon is equivalent to like 3 casters, sort of, ish.
Right.
Just to keep things simple. Just 3 casters, you don't have to worry about it. So treat it like as 3 casters baked into a single minion.
Right.
Okay? So all that you're doing is you're noticing sort of the differential. So when this minion dies, this number goes up by 1. And that's because, of course, you remove this, now their wave is bigger. Then as minions die in your wave, you add to this number as well. And so what your goal is to keep it around like 45 CS difference. So that it's in favor of the enemy, so that it keeps pushing into you. That's the goal.
Yeah.
But you also want to make sure this number doesn't start reaching into like 6s, 7s, or like 8s. Because as it gets bigger and bigger, it becomes harder and harder to manage the wave. And you'll have to like do a lot of things like tanking the wave just to keep the wave in this sort of position where it is.
Yeah.
And that can, of course, be, you know...
Yeah, you lose HP for that and stuff.
Yeah. So, like, you want to keep it around this area, sort of. In this general area.
Okay. Cool.
In any case, though. So, that's the gist of it. And you don't actually need to know that much more other than that. That's pretty much it. The most important thing that I always remind people of is that you don't want to make the game too complicated for yourself. You want to keep it as simple as you possibly can. The game's already complicated enough, so we must sort of learn to simplify and be okay with not having the complete answer all the time.
Yeah.
There, I think the Q was unnecessary. You didn't need it.
I thought I might have missed it, but that's fair enough.
Yeah. The rules like are to be taken literally. Like when you have the rules, take the rules literally. As
you mean like the stage rules?
Yeah. For the specific stage, you take the rules of like 2 minions or unable to get the CS. Take those 2 rules like literally as they are.
Right.
Because again, right, it's like going back to what I just said. That we keep it literally because then it's easier to interpret. Then you don't have to like read between the lines and be like, well, in this sort of situation, I guess it makes sense. Like some exceptions to the rule. You don't have to worry about that.
Keeps it very straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah. We have the freeze again. This is nice. Yeah, and you just hold it here, which is also good.
They go on like vacations to random places. I don't understand these players.
Yeah, so when we see Darius right there, we definitely just want to crash the wave in and get it in. And you can even go for, to be fair, you could even go for the turret plating here. Like there's.
I think they ended up doing that here because Darius was just staying. So and then I got flamed by my Tarek for not actually hitting the turret, even though I took like 3 plates or something, which was pretty funny. But yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think this game is a little bit on the bias side. I was thinking a lot more about because I knew I was recording it for VOD. I was thinking a lot more about what I was doing and why.
Sure.
So I think the Darius, the other VOD, is because that was like recorded last hour. It was a lot less thought that went into it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I mean, I do try and think about like what I'm doing a lot of the time, but if I'm being honest, that doesn't always work because it's I don't know. It's kind of sometimes it's just difficult to think about the game.
You'll be surprised to know that I actually think that you shouldn't think too much about the game, especially when you are playing. Way you can think of it is that if we have the brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our brain, you can sort of divide it into two parts, very roughly.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a crude sort of estimate, but essentially you have the subconscious mind and you have sort of your consciousness, the
Yeah.
things that you're aware of in the present and such. And you have the subconscious, which is usually in response, like they're responsible for your motor controls, their response for just your movement in general, the the things that happen without having you thinking about them, such as your heartbeat,
Yeah.
etc. Right? So those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that this part of the brain is really good at.
Yeah.
Our frontal, like our consciousness, our normal consciousness, isn't good at keeping multiple things in mind at the same time all at once.
Right.
The way we work is we're actually very sequential beings. We like to do one thing and then we move on to the next thing and then we move on to the third thing. Right?
Right. Yeah.
We're not like computers. And even computers are actually technically running sequentially. They're just giving an illusion that they're multitasking.
Yeah.
We don't need
Very
to go in.
linear.
Yeah, we don't need to go too in depth on that. But the idea is that you have two parts of your brain that are responsible for two different things. When you're executing things, such as, for example, last hits, that's
Yeah.
when you are you are using this part of your brain because you are controlling your hands, right? So you have your hands,
The
and
drawings are amazing.
and your hands are doing stuff to move your champion, and your champion is an extension of your hand. So
Yeah.
whenever it comes to your execution, this is the part of the brain that you want to be using. So you don't actually want to be thinking about how you should move. You don't want to be
Yeah.
thinking about how you should last it. You want to just simply do it. Just literally do what Nike says. Just do it.
Yeah. But it's a weird spot to be in. But so for things like, I don't know, not on that yet for the stages, but like when it comes to things like jungle tracking or like mid game where you've got to be necessarily thinking about a bunch of different moving parts, it's like how is that like a good example for like conscious decision making or
Yeah,
something?
decision making. Yeah, because this is logic. Your frontal lobe is responsible for logic, logical thinking. Deciding based on the options that you have available to you in sort of a decision tree,
Mm-hmm.
which option makes the most sense out of these? Those are the questions that this part of the brain are good at answering. It's
Right.
when your consciousness is trying to control what this part of the brain is good at. It's trying to essentially, it can be because of ego, it can be because of overthinking, it can be because of over intellectualizing whatever you are doing right now. And either intentionally or unintentionally, you decide to try to control yourself, try to replicate something, and try to force it to happen, which of course causes you to perform worse when it comes to the execution of something.
Yeah.
So something technical, like moving your hands around.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to think about walking, like how to move each muscle in your body when you are walking, you you won't be able to walk, at least
Yeah.
not smoothly. It would
It's
be
like the
very sort
whole
of jittery.
you're now thinking that you're breathing or blinking or whatever. It's like it becomes strangely harder to do those things, or you become very conscious of it. It's not as easy anymore, I guess.
Right. So what I recommend doing is instead employing the idea that you instead want to actually just be paying attention. So your eyes, all you want them to do is just simply be aware of the last hits and be aware of the enemy wherever he is in the lane. Those are the only two things that you're aware of for stage 1.
Yeah.
And the way you can think of it is it's just like, right. So as I was saying, just repeating this for the recording because I apparently disconnected. So we just simply want to be aware of the last hits and the enemy. Those are the two things we want to be aware of because they are the most important.
Yeah.
Cool. There we go. Right. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Cool. Move your eyes between these two things, like you would do in driving. I don't know if you have driven a car. Have you?
I have not driven a car.
Yeah. Then you at least got some driving knowledge out of that. So basically just, if you ever go out on the freeway, which you will at some point, then be aware of the left and be aware of what's ahead of you and move your eyes between these two things. Makes it really easy. Driving teachers will go over this, most likely.
I've tried doing something similar, but like, should it be like really rapid or just?
It should not be too rapid because if you're doing this like all over the place, you're not going to register.
Yeah.
When you look at junglers that F key a lot, the way they're actually doing it in the right way is that they're paying attention to certain spots on their screen.
Yeah.
So, but again, we don't need to go over that. The point is that you want to move your eyes fast enough that you're able to still see and make out what's happening, but that you're not like doing it too quickly to the point where you're not even catching what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Because then you're doing it too much. I don't know what he's doing here, but he seems a bit upset.
I think he was trying to freeze it.
Yeah. I mean, if he just does this, then you can. You can. By the way, like after 10 minutes, when lane is over, you are then allowed to sort of transition away from focusing on stage 1, and then you want to instead be focusing on just playing the mid game.
Right.
And playing the mid game is very different because what you're then doing is you are focusing on a few things. Namely, you're focusing on the minimap.
Yeah.
So you're being aware sort of the things that are happening here. You're aware of the bubbles. You can see the bubbles right here of the champions. So you want to be aware of where your team is. So where each of these bubbles are on the map. And that then allows you to then keep track of your teammates. And if you notice that the bubbles are close together, like if they are like this, then you can assume that a team fight will be probably happening up here in the top lane. And if you notice that they're separated, so let's say that they're like all across the map like this, then you can assume that they're not going to fight. And even if they do fight, they're probably just going to die alone. So they're just going to go like 1v1 or 1v2 and die. So then you don't need to do anything. Then you want to focus on farming. So when your team is separated, you focus on farming. When your team is grouped up around the given area, doesn't matter where it is, you then want to be focusing on trying to get into a fight. Or if you can't feasibly get there in time, then you want to focus on getting an advantage elsewhere. And the advantage can be in the form of farm, so getting camps, getting waves that you see right here, or getting towers, or other objectives like Herald, etc. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, this is something in practice, I think I struggle with, though, is like, if let's say the teammates are grouping over something that let's say, for example, I correctly deem it's a bad play, which I might not always correctly deem it's a bad play, but let's assume it is a bad play. is it okay to group with them anyway, knowing that they're going to take a bad fight and it's probably going to be a bad outcome, or should I just like say no and then just keep trying to get an advantage in another way?
First question. So, can you? Let's add more width to this. There. Oh, there. Can. Oh, what? Oh, accidentally. Yeah, listen, I'm new to this. I'm still learning. In any case, can you impact the fight positively? So can you have a positive impact?
That's a question with a lot of variables, though, isn't it?
Yes, but mainly, of course, it's like part of it is that yes, you do want to join basically almost every fight, if not every fight, if you can. But if you can't, or if the fight is already losing from the beginning, then you're free to just leave and focus instead on just doing other things like getting farm and pushing lanes.
Right.
Right.
So as a rule of thumb, if there's a fight, try and look to join it.
Yeah, look to join it. If it doesn't go well, or if you know that you're losing, like let's say you tab and you see like, oh shit, their team is like ahead by quite a margin, and it's very unlikely that we'll win. Okay, then you make a conscious decision to then just go and split push.
Yeah, and back to what I said earlier about this game being self-imposed exile, I think there's a lot of disregarding fights when I think possibly I could have joined them.
Other thing, of course, is that as you are now entering midgame, after you reach 10 minutes, you can then switch. So now you're actually fine with hitting Darius if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Because now we're past laning phase. After laning phase is over, you can then focus instead on the mid game and focus now on just like getting leads, making your way through towers, trying to go towards ending the game as your main goal.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the idea here. So right now you don't have to continue doing like stage 1 things, at least not lane wise. You can now instead focus on doing the mid game stuff. So like you're allowed to hit, you're allowed to just go for kills on him. Although of course you still want to be sort of aware of like what fights you are taking and such.
Yeah. So in like this scenario, because I'm like far ahead of him, rather than positioning like defensively and far away, is it okay to like stand between him and the minions as like an example of like more aggressive sort of position?
No, that's not necessarily the idea. It's that if he is in range and you can hit him, then by all means do so if you can.
Right.
Like you're allowed. I'm saying that. I'm not saying anything about you being more aggressive or positioning in a different way. I'm just saying that if you do get the opportunity to, you don't have to like avoid it intentionally.
Right. Okay.
After laning phase.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because at this point, right, we're at a point where laning phase is over, so you don't necessarily have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah.
You do, of course, want to join fights that you can and continue to keep your farm up, because part of stage 1, right, is to get 7 CS per minute consistently throughout the mid game.
Mm-hmm.
For now, you have 150 at 16 minutes and 18 seconds. I think that is. Yeah. So you're doing just fine, like more than fine, in fact.
Like I said, this was on the upper end of like the CSing sort of games.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to like one trick Irelia before I took a break from the game, and I used to get like high CS a minute, but I don't think it really did much for me.
Yeah. I don't think that you're necessarily becoming a better player by playing her, because you are then just simply using the fact that you're playing Irelia and she's that strong to your advantage. These are, by the way, type of situations you want to look to avoid. So notice how, looking at the map, you can see sort of down here that the map is very dark. Like here. We don't really see our enemy besides Xerath in bot lane. He's the only one that we see. Everyone else is pretty much AWOL. So we have no idea if they're on the top side or if they're on the bottom side. Either way, it's not looking good for us, so we probably want to look to avoid any sort of fights.
Right.
So whenever you're in this sort of position here, where you're starting to push, even actually over here, right?
Yeah.
When you're starting to push past this point, further towards the enemy's territory, you really, really want to make sure that you avoid taking fights that you have no idea whether they are actually going to be good for you or not.
Yeah.
And generally, right, that's when you want to then focus on either going in to take camps safely and like warding up maybe, or just backing off and waiting for the wave to push out. You can maybe reset to get some items, or you can go over to your jungle and farm camps there. So whenever there's no fight happening on the map right now, for example, Yon is out fresh off of like coming out of Fountain. Tarek is like coming out of Fountain as well. He's like past like the second tier tower at this point.
Yeah.
He's not out on the map yet. So right here we can basically assume that we're not fighting. We're looking to farm. So this is a signal to us that, okay, we need to right now be focusing on getting towards our next source of farm. So whether that's a camp or whether that's the next wave, depending on how safe it is, we then want to make decisions around that.
So getting towards the next source of farm that doesn't sacrifice safety.
Exactly. Because safety, again, comes back to, making sure we maintain that 7 CS per minute. And the way you can do that very consistently is by minimizing your deaths. For stage 1, you really want to just avoid dying in general, right?
Right.
Because dying has all sorts of consequences. You lose CS,
XP, time.
Yeah, XP, gold, which comes with the CS, all that stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So dying is just in general not something you are looking for with stage 1. So just simply focus on being safe and taking fights that are very, very consistent, and they're not like gamble. They're not a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
So right here, for example, you're completely fine with just letting him push you in. And looking at the state of the map, we can see that most of the team is hovering around the bot side, with Yon being the only one that's like around here.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we don't really have any idea where the enemy is. We don't see any clear indication of where they are. We can assume that they might be on the bottom hand side, but they also might be on top side. We don't know.
Yeah.
Here, though, he is going very far up, so you're allowed to like hit him. Yeah, and here you back off. Yeah, that's completely fine. But yeah, as you saw, right? Like, we didn't know where Kha'Zix was, but he could have been there, and he was. Yeah. So that's why we want to be sort of moving away from mostly looking here and here to now mostly looking here and also like what's just on your screen, literally.
Yeah.
Those are like, that's how you like sort of shift your mindset from like laning to mid game.
Zoom out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not really like going for solo kills actively. If you can, that's great, that's fine. But you're not actively looking for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
What's your thoughts on like freezing in mid game? Because obviously this is something that people like let's hop on about, but I don't know how effective is it.
Just avoid freezing in general when you're
outside of like coordinated play and stuff.
Yeah, outside of coordinated play. Well, they're okay. I will say this: there might be some situations where it is applicable, but I think it's in general better to just keep it simple and just say just don't freeze in mid game. Just push waves, really.
Mm-hmm.
Just shove waves. Focus on shoving. Don't really worry too much about the freezing stuff.
Fair enough.
It's not going to be the thing that like gets you out of any sort of elo, if that makes sense. So here, right, if you remember what we talked about, we have to sort of be aware, not just to be aware of what's happening right here, but also to be aware of, okay, is it a winning fight? Like looking around, like saying, okay, are we like winning, or is this like a fight we want to really avoid? Like looking here, we know that Tarek is low. We see that Kane is low. Probably not a time to fight. So now we want to look at what's the closest source of farm. So you have bot lane here. You also have maybe Krugs here. You also have the Scuttler that is coming up right now. Or you have mid, if mid is open. Or you can then go top.
Yeah.
So you have those options. And let's see what you're doing. Okay, so the fight actually does continue, but I think that looking at your teammates, you can probably tell that we should really not be doing fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I leave and they fight,
that's not on
and
you.
They die.
That's
it's like it's okay to leave there.
Yes, that's not on you. Because like you saw right there, Kane died. That's not on you. So you shouldn't take responsibility for it and say, "Oh, I need to now do something. I need to like make up for it. I need to clean up or whatever." That's not at all what you want to do. A lot of players end up in that sort of mindset where they start thinking about like, "Oh shit, I want to compensate for what my team is doing. I want to like make sure to like, oh, I need my bot is feeding." Like if bot is feeding, you then focus on, okay, how can I prevent this? You then try to play in ways, not specifically that help you improve, but rather in ways that help you avoid this problem right here that you've noticed is a problem. But the only reason that you notice it as a problem is because your mindset is focused on the result of the game, the outcome, whether it's a win or whether it's a lose. Because if you're just doing stage 1, right, then you don't even care about this. You don't even entertain sort of the idea that, oh, I need to do something about this thing. Like if they are feeding early game, that's not on you. And that shouldn't be your focus of like how you improve, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
Yes. And it also like removes a lot of sort of the confusion that a lot of players have, because a lot of players think in those sort of ways. They think about like the events that happen in the game and the outcome of their games, and so they end up actually like backtracking and improving on things that aren't really significantly going to help them become better players. And it overall just makes the game more confusing, more things you have to entertain, like, okay, how do I balance helping my bot lane with laning? How do I like, how much should I like be putting on laning and how much should I be putting on like helping my bot lane? It just adds too much confusion, makes the game too complicated.
Right.
Again, remove as many unnecessary things as possible, keep it simple.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. So you don't need to do Drake, and you shouldn't even need to be responsible for Drake. So you saw like, we spent, how much time was that? So let's look.
A lot.
So we entered the fight. I mean, we're already going for the fight here. So 21 basically. We can say 21. Now you're done. So 40 seconds.
Yeah.
It took you 40 seconds to realize that this is lost and we should just be leaving. So definitely look to evaluate things faster so you don't have to like overstay and waste time. Because you could have been spending this time maybe even pushing top, getting towers and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so you notice like a lot of shit happening. We didn't even need to be there, to be fair. Didn't even get the key, an assist.
Yeah. Moral contribution.
Oh, yeah. You were there in spirit.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're back again, right?
Dark, yeah.
Super dark.
I distinctly remember tunnel visioning on not looking at the minimap here. I remember dying. I was like, I didn't pay attention at all.
So we know that 2 people are dead, but we also know that there's 3 people missing.
Yep.
So definitely don't overstay here. Definitely run away.
Take the price for that. Yeah.
Yep.
I think this is where the game started to go downhill because we were like,
Uh-huh.
we were winning. We were winning like during laning phase or something like that, and then from here it just kind of all went a bit tits up.
What? Oh, he flashed.
I think he went. I think he went back into Wolf Pit, but
now you want to be aware, right? Look at the HP. You see how we're very low HP. It's like these champions aren't actually in the fight. You have to assess it as if it was a 3 versus X, and X being unknown. You don't know. Mm-hmm. It's at least less than the number of. It's at least around max going to be the number of champions that are alive. Like that's the maximum.
It's like worst case 3 versus 4.
Yeah. But you don't know. So and that's the thing, right? We don't want to go for fights that aren't guaranteed, and this isn't guaranteed because this is 2v1 in this case. And it's a 2v1 with the caveat that someone could be entering the fight after us and then deal damage to us and kill us.
2v2 and Kane's already like...
Yeah. So really be aware of like whether the fight is winning or losing. You don't want to be too committed to the point where you now have to die if the team loses. And you don't want to be too uncommitted to the point where... or non-committal is the right word. You don't want to be too non-committal to the point where you're not even there dealing any damage. Because that's also not so good.
Yeah.
So you want to get 7 CS a minute, but you also want to be there for fights when they make sense. And if you see that the fight is lost, you just leave.
Yeah.
That's the idea. It's like, this is fine.
To avoid holding him if I could.
Yeah. Now we want to be sort of really cautious here. You see how like we're starting to get a bit low on the enemy team, or like sorry, on our team.
Yeah.
We're starting to get a bit low.
Fight this it is, then I got some bad news for you. That's not what I did. Well, this might be a different one. Yeah, this is a different one.
Yeah. So then we just go back to farming. Perfect. Like perfectly makes sense.
I don't think I took the grump. No, no. Is it? I didn't want to tell our jungler. I don't think the camps.
I don't think it matters. Like if he's not on the same side as you are, then you don't need to worry about him. Like if he's off doing something else, you can take the camp.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah. And in some ways, you're actually doing him a favor because camps don't actually go up in gold and XP unless you kill them.
Yeah. They're based on champion level stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So technically, you're actually doing him a favor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is the suspicious fight, I think.
And here we want to be really cautious. Kane isn't here yet. Yeah.
You missed the part where I turned and killed Ezreal.
Yeah. I already like sort of figured out that he's probably dead. But
it's a Garen moment right there.
Yeah. The bush power spike. You sit in the bush automatically, and you now deal thousands.
Spit to win. Yeah. They both love and hate Garen at the same time.
It's like he's so simple. He's so simple. Like he's a simple man.
One-dimensional in his specific character sense, I guess.
But it also removes a lot of like fluff.
Yeah.
You're basically cutting away all the fat, and you're left with just like the food itself. Yeah. No no additives, no sugars, just pure health.
Yeah, it's like at this point in the game though, it's like I their team is starting to get quite a bit fed.
But you
It's like
notice, right, how like now our team is mostly dead, so we shouldn't even be fighting, and our base is actually getting pushed in right now, so
yeah,
you don't actually want to do what you did there.
yeah,
So again, don't compensate. If the fight is lost, just accept that the fight is lost. That's what happens. Right. Otherwise, you brute force things and you try to make it work, but that's not because of like fundamentally good reasons. It's because you are afraid of losing, or rather, you are avoidant of like losing or failure or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep. So we.
I think that's a GG. Oh no, not yet.
What happens next? I don't know.
I think it was like one team fight and then we all die and then it's GG. I still thought we could win this. I was wrong.
Yeah. Okay? So you are starting the fight way before your team is even there.
Right.
And then like then that means that now you're not even in the fight when it actually initiates, which is now. And that's when your team dies, and then you can't do anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair though, like they were already weak as it is, so I think it's fair to assume you would have probably lost either way. Right.
So I should know that it doesn't matter. That question doesn't matter.
So what I want to do now
mm-hmm.
is I want you to go into CS Drill, do the CS Drill versus Mundo, and let's do something different here.
Why
I want you to so I want you to focus on just the CS and just the Mundo. So move your eyes between the two things, and try to sort of remove any other intrusive thoughts that happen, or not remove, the wrong choice of words. I want you to just no, not even like push aside. I'm saying let the thoughts exist there without involving yourself. Like let yourself exist as you are. Let your thoughts exist as they are. Let the emotions you feel exist as they are, and don't involve yourself further with them.
Right.
Simply let them be. Okay?
Gotcha. Any champ in particular? Let's stick with Garen, I guess.
Yes. You play Garen.
Right.
So we stick with that.
Share my screen.
Yes.
There we go. Coming in with the smite cleanse. Is that working all right?
Yes.
All right, cool.
And I'm recording, so you don't have to worry about that.
Right, so I'm recording all of them anyway.
Sure.
I'll keep them for future reference, I guess.
Sure. So remember, right? Focus on doing. Don't even just like. I want you to just try not to think. Just simply do it, right? So move your eyes between the last hits and Mundo.
Oh, this is fucking terrible.
Don't judge. Simply just focus on last hits. Okay, you're done. Control Shift period on your keyboard.
Ooh.
There you go.
All right.
So
That felt bad, but it's.
how so? What do you mean?
I mean, I don't take this in a bad way, but it's like obviously I can know you're there, and like there's a part in the back of my mind that I'm not actively thinking about it, but I guess there's some part of me that's like I know you're there, so I know you're watching, and even though you consciously know that you're not judging and you don't care about the like necessarily about the well, it's not that you don't care, but it's like you're not judging. Part of me is always going to think, oh, there's someone watching, so it's like it's not. But
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but what I think is really like interesting is that you made that comment like in the game, like about how oh this is terrible, but if I ask you, were you how did like did you were you still thinking, or were you trying to just simply focus as much as you could on the present?
Definitely trying to focus, but to what degree of success is of debate. I mean, it's
okay. Maybe try is the wrong word here. I think instead just do it. I think that's a better way of me putting it. Because when you try, that's when your brain is involved, and that's when like your consciousness is trying to do it. Yeah, simply just do it. And the thing to be aware of is that whenever a judgment pops up, usually the way it works is that your subconsciousness generates a thought that bubbles up, and there's like sort of a phase from when the thought appears here to when it eventually arrives here called conceptualization.
Yeah.
So what this means essentially is that it should be an S, not a Z, but in any case, what this means is that you have the thought, but you haven't conceptualized what it actually means, logically speaking. So you can feel anger, but it isn't until it reaches here that you notice that it's anger.
Yeah.
But that's like the thing, right? You want to be able to catch these thoughts before they arrive here. Because it's when they arrive here that you then start to like think about it and like, oh, the being angry is bad, or like being angry is like associated with other things.
Instead of overthinking.
Yeah. So you're conceptualizing the thought and putting it sort of like in a box of like whether it's good or whether it's a bad thing, and that's how you sort of evaluate your experiences, and you try to reach for the good things and you try to really avoid the bad things. But before you even do the conceptualization, they are all just experiences. They're all experiences. Every experience is equal. Doesn't matter what it is. So I just simply want you to notice that you are judging and just be aware of that thought.
Right.
But what I want you to do is not to involve yourself with that, because it doesn't help you to judge yourself during the game. It won't help you improve. It's only here in VOD review that we can actually notice things and then use those things that we notice to then improve.
Yeah.
That's how you want to go about it. So let's now just notice what's happening. Do you notice anything right away?
Not particularly.
Do you remember what we talked about with the waves?
The box model stuff. So there's 5 and there's 3. Or
Yeah.
in this case,
the middle of the lane, you only need +1. An extra minion is enough for the wave to keep pushing. So you can already actually start trimming.
Right.
It's completely fine to do it. And he is not in range to punish you if you approach from this angle.
Right.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
So you can begin trimming this minion right here.
I suppose this changes depending on like basics of different matchups. So say for example, in a different world I was playing, I don't know, Kale versus Darius, like you're not gonna be wanting to do the same sort of thing. Just as kind of like a side
you wouldn't be playing Kale in the first place if you're working on fundamentals.
Oh yeah, but I was just like talking like it was an extreme example of like how does like
I mean sure, it
changes
in some ways, yeah.
Right.
But okay. Certain champions like Kale don't really lend themselves easily to working on these things. And so they aren't really good examples.
Picking Kale. It was just like an analogy for like you're playing an unfavored matchup, for example.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I understand where you're coming from with that. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. It definitely can change things, but it's not too significant, I think. I think that for the most part, as long as you're playing champions like Garen and stuff, then it shouldn't matter too much.
Right, okay.
Yes, but in any case, right, here, yeah, it's fine to go for last hit. And like the other one. This is a timing where you can...
I felt like a weird one to go for, though, because I feel like playing against a natural human, we would like immediately turn around and start smacking you there.
If he does, then you can use Q. Then you run away.
Yeah, Q and then leave.
Yeah. In any case, though, you notice like how the wave got big, and this is because we didn't trim earlier. Mm-hmm. So that's just something to keep in mind, right? And like we said, biggest causes of lost CS: death, resets, and the wave. Mm-hmm. 3 big sins, sort of. Mm-hmm. And this is where you lose most of your last hits. You will lose some last hits to other things like timing, whether you're like mistiming it or not. Too late or too soon. Mm-hmm. Those are things that can happen, but they are minor in comparison to the big 3 that are up here.
Yeah.
And you notice, right, how we use Q there, even though we didn't need to. And you notice how, like, after we use Q on this, now we have Q on cooldown, and we could have used this to get this one. Use Q on this, then auto-attack this, then get the last one with just an auto.
I think part of the reason why I use Q, and I'm not trying to justify it, but I think it's because it's like the movement speed is like a placebo for making the auto-attack faster. So I feel like it's almost like it feels like it's more precise. Because sometimes, like, the movement speed is useful. I think there is one coming up where I use the movement speed just to get there in time. But, I mean, I think sometimes it is just
spacing. That's spacing, right? Because then you are compensating for your spacing by using Q.
Right.
So what I would do is, instead of using Q, figure out why you need to even use Q in the first place. Why did you even use it? And then we now can see, okay, from what you just said, we can estimate that, okay, your spacing probably is a bit maybe too far back. Yeah. Looking at the situation here, for example, you can see that he's not even close to being able to hit us. So we don't necessarily have to stand too far back. And there, for example, you see how we could have, if we were closer, we would have been able to get that CS, turn around, Q this instantly. Yeah. You saw that, right?
Yeah.
So now you know what I mean. Spacing. Mm-hmm. That is probably a big reason. That's actually another one on the list, but spacing is maybe a bit further down. It's like after like timing, it's also spacing. That's also a thing. Yeah. It's more so of a thing with like melee champions. I think it's definitely something you can work on. It's also true for range champions, but with range champions you play against other range champions. So then in that situation it's more so the spacing is more so to do with just making sure that you don't get hit by the enemy, because that's something you want to be aware of.
Spacing dynamics a bit different.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the idea is the same, right? The idea is
Yeah.
the same, that you want to be in range of the CS when you want to last at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was maybe a slightly like... And you notice there too, right? You took this sort of position when you could have taken this position and been in range of both.
Yeah.
You were here lasting this, then you moved up here to Q. You had to Q because you were this far away from this minion that was right here.
Yeah.
So you had to Q. If you had instead stood here, lasted this, turn around, lasted this, you wouldn't even need to use Q.
Yeah.
Or at least it wouldn't be that close.
Mm-hmm.
This is the weird, the
Unfortunate.
weird stuff happening.
Simulating real gold players.
You notice there too how like you were this far back, you walked up, get this, but then oh shit, fuck, I'm not close enough. I need to use Q. Ah shit, I missed it. If you had stood here, you would have gotten both.
Right. So spacing is a big thing.
Yes. But if I were to ask you before the session, do you think you would have given me a similar answer?
No. It's spacing is not something I had considered as being a big impact on CS and things like that.
Yeah. So that obviously speaks for itself. So VOD reviewing is such an important thing to do when you are going through the stages, because the difference between stages and other sort of coaching processes is that the stages give you a very simplified sort of guide towards improving. And by doing so, it also comes with the necessary things to look for when you are VOD reviewing.
Yeah.
So you can use the knowledge from the stage process to then see, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do with the wave. These are the benchmarks. Here's how to use my abilities. Okay. And then you look at those things in the VOD review. So that's how you can improve on those things.
Right.
Cool. So let's go into another one, right?
Right.
And this time, I really, really want you to just focus on being aware of the last hits and the enemy.
Right. Yeah.
And sort of notice also just how you're spacing.
Yes.
Yes. But besides that, I want you to not involve yourself with any thoughts. Let them exist. If they pop up, let them pop up. And simply try just to focus. Just focus. That's it.
I think that's going to be one of those things that, like, I understand now is like it's going to be harder to do in this situation. Again, I don't mean that in any disrespect to you, but like it's going to be harder to do now, always. I think, but that's definitely something I can take away with this, with the whole regards to like dealing with thoughts and things like that.
Right.
And so I think it's going to be. And like, there's nothing that's can really be done about that at the moment.
What do you mean?
In the sense, like, what I was saying about like, you're there in my brain. It's like it's always going to be there. I don't think there's much I can do to really suppress that. Or
it's not. I'm not saying you should suppress it.
But so like,
you're not supposed to suppress it. You're supposed to just let it exist, but not involve yourself.
Yeah.
So if it pops up, that's fine. Again, just focus on the last hits and focus on Mundo.
Thanks, leave me alone.
Congrats.
It's
39
it's a bit better.
CS. Very few misses. So, how did that feel?
That was a lot. Felt a lot cleaner. I mean, I did become pretty ironically, or despite all that excuses at the start of that, there was a thought that popped into my head. It was like, oh, I'm focusing a lot on the CS, and it's not as much on the Mondo. So I wasn't looking between them as frequently as maybe I should. I was like aware of where he was roughly, but
Yeah,
maybe not as frequently as I should. But yeah, there was kind of like just a fleeting thought, I guess,
yeah.
which I didn't dwell on too much. So
But
I
you
guess
were aware of it. You were aware of the
yeah,
thought. Yeah, and that's
it
good.
was kind of like, well, there's not much I can. Well, there's some stuff I can do about it now, but me thinking about it is only going to be a detriment. So I'll just kind of park it for now, almost,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then deal with
exactly.
it later.
So that specifically that choice of words, parking, that's a very good choice of words. Because the way that you want to think about your consciousness is that you want to park your consciousness and have it focus on just those two things, the last hits and the window.
Yeah.
Because it's when your mind is occupied with focusing on something that it then becomes more quiet.
Yeah.
It's like in sort of Buddhist scriptures, they talk about silencing the shattering monkey inside your head.
Yeah.
The shattering monkey being your thoughts and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, silencing isn't to be confused with suppressing or anything like that.
Yeah.
You're allowing your thoughts to exist, but you're not necessarily involving yourself. That's the difference.
You're not getting rid of it.
So, as I was saying before.
Yeah, you're not getting rid of it. You're just kind of
exactly
not dealing with it as such. You're not giving it any attention.
Right. Exactly. So you're not suppressing it. You're not sort of removing it or fighting it. You're not trying to judge it or judge yourself for even thinking those things. You're simply just there. You're just here where you are, and you are letting things happen as they happen. That's when you perform at your best, and you can see that being reflected in your CS score. You had a 39.5, and that's great. A lot of my students that do stage 1 and they maybe struggle with it a bit, usually they struggle with it because they are so preoccupied with thinking. They're
Yeah.
thinking, they're feeling emotions, they're going through those type of things, and it's hindering them from being able to fully focus on stage one.
Yeah. I think especially one of the big dominating thoughts is like, I suppose, kind of, this is my like first time getting coaching, so it's like,
Yeah.
what I am doing now, it's like it's part of improvement. I am being coached. I am doing something. So that's like a very big dominating thought, which I suppose is a better description of what I was trying to say, rather than
Sure.
you existing. It's like I am coaching. This is something that I am doing, and so that I suppose the thought is being
Yeah.
almost too aware of the fact that something is happening
Yeah.
that is different from ordinary.
Exactly.
So I think it will come with time, but that's a
Yeah.
useful way of thinking about it, I think.
Yes. And I think meditation can definitely help you with these things, because ridding yourself, ridding, again, wrong choice of words, but being more aware of what's happening in the present involves you being able to let go of your past and your future. As in, you're not thinking about the past, you're not anticipating anything, you're not thinking about whatever happened the day before, whatever happened a game before, any sort of emotions tied to the past. You try your best to sort of just remain calm and let those things exist without involving yourself and just being present.
It's just kind of an autopilot.
Yes, sort of. Because autopilot, well, it's not necessarily autopilot. There's a difference between autopilot and what we're saying here. Here, we are actually very, very aware. We are acutely aware of all the things that are happening right now. So we're not necessarily autopiloting.
Yeah.
We are, like, maximally, like, aware of what's happening right now.
Aware, but not
thinking.
You're just not thinking about it. Yeah.
Right.
So you're taking in the information almost, but you're not over processing.
Exactly.
Or dwelling on things that don't need to be processed or dwelled on.
Right. And that again comes down to the separation between playing and VOD reviewing. Because when you are playing, your mind should be fully present and not dwell on a previous moment where you maybe lost a CS, because that's not important. You have the next CS to focus on, and the next one after that, and so on. And it's only after you are done with the CS drill, or what if you're playing a game too, that you then go into VOD review and you look, okay, so what are some things I can work on? And we saw the spacing. And then by noticing your spacing, you were able to correct that in this game. But you weren't necessarily thinking about it. That's why your CS score improved so suddenly. And why you're able to now reach close to 40 CS.
It is a very strange thing to think about. I'm going to be honest with you. It's like thinking, but not thinking. It's kind of like a weird state of, you're not really thinking about it, but your brain is still doing something differently anyway, which in a sense implies thinking. So it's a weird dual state to think of, but
it's essentially like you are a Twitch viewer watching a stream, and the stream being whatever your eyes are seeing.
Yeah.
It's like you're just observing yourself playing.
Yeah.
Sort of like a egoless experience. Like it's not even you technically. It's like your body doing the thing, essentially. So I have a great book for you if you care to read it that goes more into depth about this. It's The Inner Game of Tennis. It talks about this in great detail, how there's a self 1 and self 2. Self 1 being the decision maker, the teller is what he calls it, and self 2 being the doer, the thing that does things mechanically speaking with your hands and your body.
Certainly check it out. I mean, I've got the library near me now, so
I can just give you the PDF for free if you want. I'll just do it after the session.
Right.
So
I mean, I need to read more at the moment, so I'll give it a look.
Of course. So anyway, that's pretty much it, really. I think for now, at least, go into CS drills, be sort of aware, don't try to replicate. That's the most important advice I can give. Don't try to replicate what you just experienced right now, because when you replicate, Your mind
You're-
pops in,
you're
tries to
thinking.
control it. Yeah.
Replication is an act of thinking.
Yes.
So
It's an act of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let it exist. Whatever happens, happen, and don't try to replicate whatever happened before, because that is now gone, and you need to focus on the present.
Yeah.
Replicating implies that you are thinking about whatever happened before and trying to recreate that. Again, can't use your mind to silence your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of a catch-22.
Yes.
So,
All right.
okay. Any questions?
Not at the moment. Although, hopefully, if I do have any questions, you'll be around. If that's all right.
Yeah, of course. But
I
I'm
think-
just asking if you have anything right now.
Not at the moment. I think that's certainly something I can take away and work on.
Yes,
Hopefully.
I think so too. I think that if you are able to reserve your thinking for other things and reserving the amount of sort of trying that you are putting into the game, you will notice that your results actually improve. When you try less, you actually, in some ways, can get better faster.
Yeah, so it's a difference between like actively trying and passively doing.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I also appreciate it's 40 minutes past your time, so.
Yeah, sure, no problem. It doesn't matter.
All right.
I'll see you later.
All right. Yeah. See you later. Thank you very much.
Yes. Bye bye.